From translation, TLB, the Living Bible. This 286th day of the year. Today we are reading passages Matthew 26. Matthew chapter 26, verses 1 to 79. As Jesus finished speaking, he said to his disciples, "You know that 2 days from now it will be the Passover celebration, and the Son of Man will be betrayed and nailed to the cross." At this point the leading priests and other leaders met with the high priest, Caiaphas, in the palace of Caiaphas, and they schemed to seize Jesus by stealth and to kill him. But not during the Passover celebration, they said, or all the people will riot. Then Jesus went to Bethany in the home of Simon, a man who had leprosy. As he was eating, a woman came in with a beautiful jar of expensive perfume and poured it over his head. When the disciples saw this, they were indignant. "What a waste," they exclaimed. "This could have been sold for a large sum and the money given to the poor." But Jesus replied, "Why criticize this woman for doing such a good thing to me? You will always have the poor among you, but I will not be here with you long. What she has done is to pour this perfume on my body to prepare it for burial. I assure you that wherever the good news is preached throughout the world, this woman's story will be told, in memory of her." Then Judas Iscariot, one of the 12 disciples, went to the leading priests. "How much will you pay me to betray Jesus to you?" he asked. They gave him 30 pieces of silver, and from that time on he began looking for an opportunity to betray Jesus. On the first day of the Passover celebration, Jesus' disciples came to him and asked, "Where do you want us to prepare the Passover meal for you?" "Go into the city," Jesus replied, "and find a certain man and tell him, 'The Master says, my time has come, and I will eat the Passover meal with my disciples at your home.'" So the disciples did as Jesus had directed them and prepared the Passover meal there. In the evening Jesus was reclining at the table with the 12 disciples, and as they were eating he said, "I assure you that one of you will betray me." Greatly distressed, one by one they began to say to him, "I surely couldn't be the one, Lord, could I?" Jesus replied, "It is the one to whom I give this piece of bread as I dip it into the dish." Then he dipped a piece of bread and gave it to Judas Iscariot, the son of Simon. When Judas had eaten the piece of bread, Satan entered into him. Then Jesus told him, "Go and do it quickly." None of the others at the table knew what Jesus meant by this. Since Judas was in charge of the money, some thought Jesus was telling him to go and pay for the food, or to give some money to the poor. So Judas left immediately, going out into the night. As soon as he was gone, Jesus said, "Now the Son of Man is receiving the glory that was given him by the Father, and God himself will receive glory because of him. And he will do this very soon." Then Jesus took a loaf of bread, and when he had thanked God for it, he broke it and gave it to the disciples, saying, "Take it and eat it, for this is my body." And he took a cup of wine and gave thanks to God for it. He gave it to them and said, "Each of you drink from it, for this is my blood, which seals the new covenant between God and his people. It is poured out as a sacrifice to forgive the sins of many. I tell you this. I will not drink wine again until the day I drink the new wine with you in my Father's kingdom." Then they sang a hymn and went out to the Mount of Olives. Jesus said to them, "Before the rooster crows tonight, you will all deny me 3 times. "No," Peter insisted. "Even if I have to die with you, I will never deny you." And all the other disciples said the same. Then Jesus went with the disciples to the olive grove called Gethsemane, and he said, "Sit here while I go over there to pray." He took Peter and the 2 sons of Zebedee, James and John, along with him, and he became troubled and depressed. "My soul is crushed with grief," he told them. "Stay here and watch with me." He went on a little farther and fell face down on the ground, praying, "My Father, if it is possible, let this cup of suffering be taken away from me. Yet I want your will, not mine." Then he returned to the disciples and found them asleep. He said to Peter, "Couldn't you men stay awake and keep me company even for 1 hour? Keep alert and pray. Otherwise temptation will overpower you, for though the spirit is willing enough, the body is weak." Then Jesus went away a 3rd time and prayed, repeating the same words once more. When he returned to them again, he found them sleeping, for they couldn't keep their eyes open. So he went to pray again, leaving them there sleeping. "Up, let's be going. Look, my betrayer is here." And even as Jesus was speaking, Judas, one of the 12 disciples, arrived with a mob of men armed with swords and clubs. They had been sent by the leading priests and the leaders of the people. The traitor Judas had given them this sign, "Whichever one I kiss, he is the one you want. Arrest him." Then the others grabbed Jesus and arrested him. But one of the men with Jesus pulled out his sword and slashed off the ear of the high priest's servant. "Don't you realize that I could ask my Father for thousands of angels to protect us, and he would send them instantly? But if I did, how would the scriptures be fulfilled that describe what must happen now?" Then Jesus said to the crowd, "Am I some dangerous revolutionary, that you come with swords and clubs to arrest me? Why didn't you arrest me in the temple? I was there every day teaching in its halls. But this is all happening to fulfill the words of the prophets as recorded in the scriptures." At that moment, all the disciples deserted him and fled. Then the mob arrested Jesus, and its leaders bound him and took him to Caiaphas the high priest, where the teachers of religious law and other leaders had gathered. Meanwhile, Peter was following at a distance, and he came to the courtyard of the high priest's palace. He went inside and sat with the guards, waiting to see what was going to happen to Jesus. Inside, the leading priests and the entire high council were trying to find some testimony against Jesus that would condemn him to death. But they couldn't find any, though many came forward and told false lies about him. Finally, 2 men came forward and declared, "This man said, I am able to destroy the temple of God and rebuild it in 3 days. Then the high priest stood up and said to Jesus, "Well, aren't you going to answer these charges? What do you have to say for yourself?" But Jesus made no reply. Then the high priest said to him, "I demand in the name of the living God, tell us if you are the Messiah, the Son of God." Jesus replied, "Yes, it is as you say. And in the future you will see me, the Son of Man, sitting at God's right hand in the place of power and coming back on the clouds of heaven. What is your verdict?" "Guilty," they shouted. "He deserves to die." Then they began to spit in Jesus' face and beat him with their fists. And some slapped him, saying, "Prophesy for us, Messiah, who hit you?" Meanwhile, Peter was sitting outside in the courtyard. A servant girl came over and said to him, "You were one of those with Jesus the Galilean." But Peter denied it all. "I don't know what you're talking about," he said, and went out into the entryway. But there he was confronted by another servant girl, who saw him and said to those standing around, "This man was with Jesus of Nazareth." A little later, some of the other bystanders came over and said to Peter, "You must be one of them too, because your accent gives you away." Peter swore, "A curse on me if I'm lying, I don't know the man," and he went away, weeping bitterly. At dawn, all the leading priests and other leaders and elders met together to plan how to put Jesus to death. Then they took him and bound him, led him away, and took him to Pilate the governor. So Judas, the one who betrayed him, was sorry for what he had done, and he returned the 30 pieces of silver to the leading priests and leaders. "I have sinned," he declared, "for I have betrayed an innocent man." "What do we care?" they retorted. "That's your problem." Then Judas threw the money down in the temple and went out and hanged himself. The leading priests picked up the money. "We can't put it in the temple treasury," they said, "for it is blood money." So they decided to use it to buy a potter's field as a burial place for foreigners. That is why that field is still called the Field of Blood. This fulfilled what God had spoken through the prophet Jeremiah. And they took the 30 pieces of silver, the price of him on whom the people of Israel had set a value, and gave them for the potter's field, as the Lord directed me.